Ladies and gentlemen, Naya Rivera does not shower. 2 Chainz goes toe-to-toe with Nancy Grace. And, of course, Azealia Banks is out here trolling again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is C.O.O.L Radio. Welcome to the C.O.O.L.
What's going on, people? It's your boy Femi Lassie and man me.
It's your man Bo Pinto at Bo Pinto.
J Hood from the Toronto Argos. You are now tuned in to C.O.O.L
Radio 91.9 FM.
It was an amazing interview.
I had an amazing experience.
Had an amazing time. The best radio show experiences I've had ever.
Stay tuned for the hottest in news, hip-hop, entertainment, and everything.
Every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Big shout out to DM Cool. Good vibes.
Love you, man. You're famous. I love it.
Welcome to all my cool cats and cool kittens. They try to copy our style, so they stay frostbitten. You're now tuned into the airwaves of CFRE 91.9 FM and cruising through the World Wide Web at CFREradio.com. It is your man DM C.O.O.L, and this is C.O.O.L Radio.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
Absolutely, your ass better call somebody indeed. Tell a friend to tell a friend, because we are live on the air. And once again, it is your man DM C.O.O.L, and welcome to another edition of C.O.O.L Radio. There is a lot to talk about today. First and foremost, shout outs to the University of Toronto at Mississauga. You already know how they do. Shouts to everybody at campus, or on campus rather, on their study grind, as well as anywhere else, whether you're in college or university. I'm always bigging up all the people working hard at their study grind, most definitely. But yeah, like I said at the top of the show, we have a lot to get to. We have Azealia Banks trolling yet again. We have Naya Rivera and her dirty ass not liking the shower. We have Common and John Legend winning big at the Golden Globes, and we have a whole lot more to get to. But you already know how I like to do at the beginning of the show. I got some stuff to get off of my chest, indeed. So with that being said, I like to call this one Let That Ish Breathe.
Let this bitch breathe!
Now, first and foremost, before I continue on, just to remind people, we will be putting all podcasts of C.O.O.L Radio on SoundCloud beginning in February. And also, for those who like to be visually stimulated, we will be putting all episodes on YouTube once again. I am recording as we're speaking right now. In fact, I am breaking the fourth wall right now as well, too. So most definitely you will be seeing that very soon in the future. Now, with that being said, let us continue. So what I want to open up today's show with was Lupe Fiasco, causing some controversy yet again online over the Twitter sphere. This one came in the form of a tweet, of course, and he has some few words to share in regards to Martin Luther King. And he says the following on Twitter, and I quote, F Martin Luther King, N-word, F change. So, clearly, an abrasive statement like that caused a riot storm of angry Twitter followers and just Twitter surfers in general, people claiming that Lupe sold out, he's a coon, he's a tool for the white man, all that stuff. Now, when I saw that initially the first time, I'm thinking to myself, nah, there's got to be some sort of method behind this man's madness, because he doesn't do this without any reason at all. So he went on to clarify, not even clarify, but he went on to further expand on his tweet in regards to MLK, and he says the following. You can put it right in their face for months, and they won't pay attention until you put it in a tweet with a hashtag. And then he continues on to say, and they just go on completely unaware of what is happening around them until feelings are hurt, and it's a cool thing to do. Also, he says, in regards to his current status with his label Atlantic, now that my contract is over, I have other things that I'd rather be doing. I get to make the decision to go back to the shadows. And he goes on and on and on about his situation with Atlantic nonetheless. Now, what he said initially after the aforementioned tweet about Martin Luther King is, for the most part, true. Us as a society, we don't really pay attention to anything until it is seen on social media, or if there's a big statement that follows it that includes some sort of shock value, because shock value is what gets us, gets our antennas up. The minute we hear something that's abrasive or something that's going to grab our attention, obviously we're going to flock to it. And I think that's just that's just been the law of society for the longest time, and that's not going to change. So I can understand why people would get mad at Lupe for saying that, but he had a point. Like, you have to say something as abrasive as that to get people's attention, but at the same time, that could backfire. The minute they hear something that's as shock-worthy as that, people may not want to tune into what you have to say afterwards because of the fact that it's so disrespectful that you may have lost all credibility with that statement that you started off with. So it's a catch-22 in that regard. And for Lupe Fiasco, he has been the type of personality over the last 3 or 4 years who sounds very bitter and disgruntled over Twitter because of his label situation, about how Atlantic didn't want to put out certain albums because they were too smart or they didn't have the sound that they were looking for. So I think he kind of used that as a way to air out his grievances yet again about his label situation. And I feel sorry for Lupe because, me being a Lupe Fiasco fan ever since Food and Liquor days, this isn't the Lupe that I've been hearing for the last 3 or 4 years. Isn't the Lupe that I grew up listening to when I was in high school. So obviously there's something going on with him in his mind, and I feel like he needs to be at a place where it's similar to where he was at, you know, years prior, back in 05 and 06, when he was making music that he enjoyed, when he put out the arguable classic Food and Liquor. So we'll see how things go on with that. But that's just what I want to open up with on today's show. But coming up, right around the 8:15 minute mark, as I like to say, we will be talking about the trouble that Azealia Banks has gotten herself into once again. This time, ironically enough, trolling one Kendrick Lamar, and also some comments that led up to that. We will get into that after the commercial breaks. But before we get to that, we got some Canadian content that I want to share with you guys, because you already know I'm all about bigging up all my artists, not from Toronto, but just from all over Canada in general as well. All those people who are getting on their independent grind, as I like to call it. This one comes by way of Vancouver native Sun Real. And this track right here, this is one of my favorite tracks off of his project, One Long Day. This one is called Tomorrow, featuring Shad. We'll be right back after these messages. This is Cool Radio. Yeah. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. You're now tuned into CFRE 91.9 FM and listening online at CFREradio.com. It is your man, DM Cool. You're now tuned into Cool Radio. Welcome back to the show, people. Now, as we were discussing beforehand, we're at the 8:17 mark, but it's okay. No worries, no worries. But what we're going to get into right now is a discussion that's been happening for a number of weeks now, ever since her appearance on Hot 97, and we are going to talk about Azealia Banks. All right. Now, Azealia Banks is an artist who has been known as a troublemaker of sorts through the World Wide Web, always trolling and tweeting about who she doesn't like, and basically just bashing anyone who's affiliated with people that she doesn't like in the first place. So we all know that she has a long-running standing feud with Iggy Azalea for God knows what reason. And we all know that she went on she went on Hot 97 a few weeks back to talk about her issues with her, but then also brought race into the equation as the main reason why she's attacking Iggy Azalea, which I personally don't agree with. Like, I feel like if you have a problem with how the system is ran as far as artists are concerned, like who has more, precedent over the other in terms of race, whether it be a black artist or a white artist, then don't take it up with the artist in question. Take it up with the tastemaker. Take it up with the Jimmy Iovine's, the Rich Klymans, the Rick Rubins. Those people, those are the people you need to take your issue with. Now, I've already aired this out before, both on the air and also on a YouTube video that I made a few weeks back. But again, the issue persisted. This time she made some comments towards Kendrick Lamar, okay? And I've also said in regards to Azealia Banks that she burns her bridges way, way, way too much. Like, she's at the point where she's not going to be able to work with anyone, mainly because of the fact that nobody wants to work with someone who's perceived as a troublemaker. Nobody wants that on their conscience. Nobody wants that on their head. Because at the end of the day, if all you do is badmouth people, then who's going to really want to work with you? Especially Kendrick Lamar being like one of the most highly respected artists in today's generation. And in regards to that, he made some statements about Ferguson, basically. Not just Ferguson, but just how in his neighborhood of Compton, how black men don't respect themselves. And basically he was talking from the context of how a lot of black males in his neighborhood get into drug dealing, gang banging, they womanize, things of that nature. So when he's talking from that context, yes, it's true. Like black men in that neighborhood don't respect themselves. And he's seen it firsthand. He made a whole album about it, Good Kid, Mad City, and even detailed on some of that in Section 80 when he was talking about children of the Ronald Reagan era, calling them dysfunctional bastards. This we all know. Now, enter Azealia Banks. She jumps in and calls him disrespectful for saying it, amongst other things, mainly because of the fact that it involved black men as part of the discussion. But really, she's only getting at Kendrick, in my personal opinion. I think this is fact, but we can leave this all for interpretation as we're doing right now, is because of the fact that he went to Iggy's defense, basically saying how hip-hop is for everyone, you know? Like anyone can enter into hip hop. Those aren't his words exactly. I'm paraphrasing, mind you, but nonetheless, that is basically the context of what he was trying to say in that regard. But of course, anyone who's seemingly with Iggy is against Banks, and that is her mentality. And so I talked about this on Facebook, and I feel like I have a propensity for causing controversy on Facebook, and this pretty much ignited into one big giant storm of conversation. So I had people commenting back and forth. Some people were agreeing with me, some people were disagreeing with me. And the ones who disagree with me, those are always the fun ones to have a conversation with. So shout out to you guys. I'm not going to mention any names, but I feel as though the people who are disagreeing with me or disagreeing against me, they kind of lost sight of what the whole argument was about in the first place. And again, like I've been saying, Azealia Banks is trying to make this into a race thing. And unfortunately, there are some people, especially black people, and not all of them, but some of them, the minute they hear race or something with a racial connotation to it, they block out everything and just hear that one thing that may have something to do that's against them, and they'll jump on it immediately, which is what happened in the argument that took place on Facebook. One person commented and said, "Why is it always when a black woman is voicing out her opinion, she's trolling?" First of all, this wasn't about a black woman or about a black man doing anything that has remotely to do with them being opinionated and therefore having been called trolling. Azealia Banks was trolling. She just so happens to be black. If this was an Indian man, a Chinese man, a white woman, and they're doing the exact same thing, then I would call it for what it is, trolling. And that's the thing right there too. I was trying to tell people, call a spade a spade. If you're going to accuse something of something, fine, but be consistent with it. I don't think people were, having the presence of mind in doing that. That was a big issue in regards to the whole Azealia Banks situation. Now, I'm going to say this. A lot of people like to throw out culture appropriation when they feel like it. When someone is of a certain status, then they want to call it cultural appropriation. But when there's someone who is of a lower status but using that to their advantage, we don't hear cultural appropriation at all. For example, Robin Thicke, we already know this guy does R&B music, R&B, soul, whatever you want to call it. In 1999, when this man was riding his little bicycle on his first single with his long flowing hair, nobody was calling cultural appropriation on that. But now that this guy comes out with a song like Blurred Lines that takes over the charts, now you want to call it appropriation because he just happens to be one of the biggest artists. Same thing with Iggy Azalea. 3 years ago, she got signed to T.I. Before then, no one gave a damn about her. The only people that gave a damn about her were the people who were within hip-hop because she was one of the 10 artists who was on the freshman cover back in 2011. But now, fast forward to 2014, when she has 2 number 1 hits on the charts during the summer, now people want to call it culture appropriation. If you're going to call culture appropriation, be consistent with it. Don't call it just because the artist is at a certain height in their career. I mean, if that's the case, you may as well call it a culture appropriation on Classified. You may as well call it on Sunreal. You may as well call it on any artist that you may not have heard of within the last 5 or 10 years. You can even go back and call it on someone like Adele, who sings a classic type of R&B music. You can call it on Amy Winehouse. You can call it on UB40. Does anybody remember the song Red Wine? Yeah, those are a whole bunch of white guys singing reggae, but nobody wants to call it cultural appropriation when it comes to that. So my thing is this. Be consistent with the claims that you're making in regards to the argument. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a clip of a song that came from the 80s. It's an early hip hop song. I'm not going to say who it was until the clip is done. But after the clip is done, then I'm going to reiterate on my statements thereafter. So here's the clip right now. It's about 20 seconds long. And jam out to it for a moment, will you?
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody slide. DJ spinning, I said, my. Flash is fast, flash is cool. Front slush and far, flush ain't no do. And you don't stop, sure shot. Go out to the parking lot and you get in your car and drive real far and you drive all night and then you see a light and it comes right down and lands on the ground and out comes a man from Mars and you try to run but you got a gun and he shoots you dead and he eats your head.
All right. So you guys heard the clip. It's about 30 seconds long, not too long. That was a clip from a song called The Rapture from an artist by the name of Blondie. Okay. Now, Blondie was huge in the 80s when it came to pop music. And The Rapture is noted as the first ever music video to, hip hop music video to be played on MTV. All right. This is 1981. It's also one of the very first rap songs, if not the first one, to be entered into the top 40. Mind you, this is 1981, so hip-hop is still pretty young at this point. Hip-hop is about 3 years old. People are still considering it a fad at this time. And not only that, but I think it's important to mention that Fab Five Freddy, of all people, was in the music video and also was one of the people that she name-dropped in the song. Fab Five Freddy, for those who don't know, is one of the biggest names in hip-hop. He's one of the biggest, on-air personalities that hip-hop has ever seen. He's right up there as far as cultural icons. He's up there with Kool Herc and also Grandmaster Flash. He's up there with those people nonetheless. And the funny thing is, what I'm trying to say is, nobody was calling cultural appropriation in regards to Blondie when she made that single back in 1981. But fast forward to 2014, and people are making this claim, not people, but mainly Azealia Banks is making that claim towards Iggy Azalea. Here's my thing right here. In regards to Iggy Azalea, I've listened to her. Not a fan of her personally. She's no different in terms of the package and the presentation. She's no different from a Lil' Kim or a Nicki Minaj in the sense that they use bravado as their shtick, so to speak, as their gimmick. Basically, they come across as I'm a bad bitch this, I'm a bad bitch that. It's not my thing. It's not my taste. Other people like it, but it's not really my thing. But I don't see how she's culture appropriating hip hop when she does the same things that, let's say, Nicki Minaj does. She dances in her videos. She talks about how sexy she is in her songs. She has a big ass. Like, I don't see how that is culture appropriation. Now, a lot of people are going to make the claim that, she uses a fake accent in her raps, which is true because she is Australian and then she switches to a southern accent, which is true. I agree to that. But she also said in an interview that hip hop is all about entertainment as well, which is very true. You have so many rappers like, let's say, Rick Ross, for example, who use like a facade or a gimmick to sell their records. Rick Ross is basically trying to play off as a drug lord kingpin, and he's been doing that for the last 8 years. But people aren't calling out the fact that he's appropriating a negative stereotype within the black community, but we want to call foul on a rapper who's basically not black. And that comes to the whole argument of self-entitlement, within hip-hop. A lot of people like to put certain standards on artists who aren't black, who are within hip-hop. And I don't think that's necessarily fair because at this point in time, hip-hop is now global. It's a billion-dollar industry and it's gone global. And there are tens of thousands of white rappers all across the globe. So why is it a problem? Why is it an issue of cultural appropriation when one of the biggest rappers in America happens to be white? Now, again, like I said earlier in the interview, or sorry, not in the interview, but in this little spiel that I'm making right now, if you have a problem with that system, in the system where a white artist may get favor over a black artist, then have a problem with the system and not the artist who's, kind of leading the charge, so to speak. Don't try and attack the nuts and the bolts, attack the entire machine. That is basically what I'm trying to get at. And I feel like a lot of people are not focusing on that. They're only focusing at the figureheads, so to speak. And the funny thing is, in regards to Azealia Banks, is she wants to call out a lot of these white hip hop artists for not being real, not being authentic. They don't sound like hip hop, they sound like pop. But the grand irony of it all is that Azealia's biggest song to date, arguably, which is called 212, sounds nothing like a hip-hop record. That record sounds like a Euro pop record. So to me, it's very contradictory. It's very hypocritical for her to say that this artist doesn't sound like hip-hop, that artist doesn't sound like hip-hop, when her biggest record is like a Euro pop record in and of itself. So again, consistency is the name of the game, and I don't think she's playing that game. And another funny thing that I found interesting about Azealia when she was making her trolling rounds was the fact that she was getting at Lupe Fiasco, who defended Iggy, of course, and she basically made a claim that Lupe Fiasco didn't know who Jay-Z was. Now, I found that kind of funny because anyone who knows Lupe Fiasco and has followed his career knows that Jay-Z almost signed him to Rockefeller Records back in 2005, but didn't because of the fact that he was probably going to get shelved on Rockefeller because there's an influx of artists on that label at that time. 2, Jay-Z was instrumental in giving Lupe Fiasco his first record deal at Atlantic Records. And 3, not only did Jay-Z feature on Lupe Fiasco's first album, Food and Liquor, as a guest appearance as an artist, but he also executive produced the album himself as well. So, again, that was a little something funny that I found that Lupe threw in Iggy's or Azealia's face. Anyways, all I'm saying is this. You can't call cultural appropriation on one thing and not call it on another thing. You could call cultural appropriation on Major League Soccer. There's a team in that league called Real Salt Lake City. I'm sorry, but the last time I checked, there was nothing Spanish about Salt Lake City, Utah. Nothing at all, not in the very least. Also, going into sports, if you want to make cultural appropriation as an argument as well, then you can say the same thing about as many black athletes as there are in North America who participate in the NBA, in the NFL, in boxing, and MMA, all sports that were created by a white man. So what are we really talking about right now? If you're going to call cultural appropriation, be consistent with it, and don't just call it because there's someone who may or may not fit that realm. I just don't agree with it when you're calling it on an artist who's white, who's at the very top. If you're going to call it, be consistent with it. You got to start from the very bottom. And like I've been saying, and I'll say it one more time just so I don't repeat myself, when we're talking about hip-hop, the only white artist who has been successful in hip-hop from a commercial standpoint, from a critical standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, is Eminem. Point blank period. No one has come close to that. We could talk about Third Base. We could talk about House of Pain. We could talk about Everlast. We could talk about Vanilla Ice, of course. We could talk about Asher Roth. We could talk about Paul Wall. All these people have come and gone. No white artist in hip hop has done what Eminem has done, and it's going to be a long time before anyone else does. We don't know how long Iggy Azalea is going to stick around for, so let's give her a chance to see if she can last at least 5 years. But until then, I can't call this cultural appropriation. So I would advise people not to jump so quickly at it. You may agree with me, cool. You may disagree with me, that's fine too. It all just creates for more dialogue, I guess you could say. And even there are some people out in the UTM halls who are disagreeing with that as well. And that's fine. I have no problem with that too. We could chalk it up later on. It's all good with me. But anyways, we could talk about this for days and weeks, but we have to keep the program moving. So on that note, we got a commercial break to get to. And before we do, you already know we got some more Canadian content to get to, as I like to get to. This one comes by way of my man Rich Kid, representing Mississauga. This one is called Flow Spitters. And I'll be right back after these messages of Cool Radio. Yeah. Welcome back to the show, people. You're now tuned into CFRE Radio 91.9 FM and listening on the World Wide Web at CFREradio.com. It is your man, DM Cool. You're now tuned into Cool Radio. Welcome back to the show, people. Before the break, we got into a pretty heated discussion about Azealia Banks and the topic of cultural appropriation in the way that she used it. I definitely noticed some of my fellow I wouldn't say students or anything like that since I'm not a student here, but I guess some of the UTM goers kind of getting in on a debate, agreeing, disagreeing, which is cool. It makes for a conducive conversation nonetheless. So if you have any more opinions about the matter at hand, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at @cool_radio or personally at DM_cool, because it's definitely something that needs to be addressed more and more often, I think, in my opinion. But anyways, we're going to move on from that and we're going to go into Trip Talk. You already know what that is. 3 topics in 3 minutes. Pardon me, my voice just cracked. I don't know. I do not know why. It's all good though. We have about 6 minutes roughly, or 5 minutes now. So we're gonna, tie a few things here and there in between and just get to it, right? So first topic I want to discuss: Common and John Legend. Now, over the weekend, they won a Golden Globe for their collaboration on the song "Glory," which is on the original soundtrack for Selma, which is the biopic film of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, me personally, I love it even more when hip hop wins outside of the music realm. So if they win like an Oscar or an Emmy or something to that extent, then they're basically being praised for their talents by another demo, basically, if you know what I mean. So a Grammy is cool. Don't get me wrong, Grammy is cool, a Moon Man is cool, but you're being recognized for your talents that people outside of your class are watching and pay attention to you, which says a lot. It means that your power of reach is that much more greater. So I'm proud to see that. And Common had some words about that as well too. He said, and I quote, "Selma has awakened my humanity. We look into the future and we want to create a better world. Now is our time to change the world. Selma is now." And it's a very powerful statement from Common nonetheless, and I expect nothing less from Common as well too. So whenever hip-hop is winning, I'm grinning, and we should all be grinning as well too. Now, next thing on the docket, 2 Chainz, all right? 2 Chainz recently was on the Nancy Grace show. And for all of you guys who don't know who Nancy Grace is, she is a right-winged on-air personality who has her own show and basically talks about a myriad of different topics, usually within current events and politics as usual. Now, the topic was about the legalization of marijuana, and she was from the position where it's bad because it makes people do immoral things, it makes people do the unholiest of things. She basically tried to come with a holier than thou disposition about the whole thing. Now, she was thinking that because 2 Chainz is some ignorant rapper who talks about big booty women and all that other stuff, she was thinking that she's going to have an easy argument against this guy and just crush him on everything. But 2 Chainz actually did his homework, surprisingly, and he came at her with some pretty impressive points. One of the things that 2 Chainz mentioned as to why he feels that marijuana should be legalized is because of the fact that it's going to cost less on taxpayers. So, for example, for people who get charged with marijuana possession, they can no longer go out of the country. Also, some people who are booked with marijuana possession, they get arrested, of course, and then they have to go through trial proceedings. And trial proceedings and anything that has to do with any sort of legality under the name of the law costs taxpayers money. And that was the argument that he was using. He was using his own situation, for example. He got caught with marijuana paraphernalia, not even marijuana itself. He got arrested for it. He had to go through booking. Then he also had to go through a court date as well, too. So that's basically a waste of his time and it's a waste of taxpayers' money. And that was the disposition that he was coming from. But Nancy tried to come from the position where if you smoke weed, then you're going to do the most vilest of acts. And she kept on bringing up parents who gave their kids marijuana. But the thing about that is alcohol is legalized, and alcohol all of the time falls into the wrong hands. So you can't use that argument when it comes to the legalization or the illegalization, in her case, of marijuana. So it's a very inconsistent argument, and 2 Chainz caught her off guard with that. And you can see near the interview that she was caught off guard with that nonetheless. And she also tried to sway it, where she was asking him about why he puts certain lyrics in the songs and why he's named 2 Chainz and everything that could deflect away from the argument so that he wouldn't win it. But surprisingly enough, he actually outsmarted her. So I'm not the biggest 2 Chainz fan, but kudos to him on that end. And finally, on Trip Talk, boxer Adrian Broner pretty much gave Jay-Z the big FU when Jay-Z and his Rock Nation Sports management team offered him $40 million. They offered him a 5-year contract worth $40 million. Mind you, if you were to sign this deal, then Adrian Broner would be guaranteed get paid $8 million within the next 5 years per fight. Right now, his earnings is only at $1.5 million at best. So you would be thinking naturally that this guy would be ecstatic. He'd be going through the roof, as would anyone. Because if someone offered me $40 million to do what I love, I'd be like, bruh, where do I sign? But no, this guy had to get Black Ratchet with it and basically spit on the whole idea of it. And this is what he said. And I quote, I mean, they sent me an email. Jay-Z didn't really do it literally. They shot the email or whatever. I wasn't happy with it. The capacity of the contract is $40 million for 5 years. That's just bullshit. And he continues. I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I felt disrespected. If you're going to come to me and tell me that I'm going to fight 2 times a year, getting $8 million a year for 5 years straight, you got me effed up. I'm not old. I'm scheduled to fight 4 times this year. Dude, you're getting $8 million. Most people never see that amount of money in their lifetime when they add up all their T4s. So why the hell you complain about getting $8 million per fight when you're only getting $1.5 million per fight? Do the math, bro. Or did you not attend school neither? I continue, or he continues rather. Then he went on to say, stop sending your workers to come talk to me. And basically, that was a shot at Jay-Z. And he's basically trying to put himself at Jay-Z's level that he can talk to him man to man. Dog, you're not built like that. So keep it moving. And then, as a parting shot, he was basically asked about had he signed the deal that he would be closer to Roc Nation recording artist Rihanna. And this was his response. Man, F Rihanna. No disrespect. Listen, man, Rihanna gonna get me no dollars. She don't make no dollars for me. At the end of the day, she gonna give me some punani, and that's it. So, first of all, I'm not the biggest Rihanna fan, so I found that kind of hilarious. I'm not gonna lie, but nonetheless, it is pretty ignorant to say the least. Nonetheless, if you're trying to conduct yourself as a businessman who's trying to increase his sales worth, or his net worth rather. And then later on, of course, he apologized, but the damage has already been done. He was that close to be my Wankster of the Week for this week, but two people edged him out. And I'm going to say who it was exactly after the commercial break. But before we get to the commercial break, you already know how we do at the 3/4 minute mark. And that is a little segment that I like to call Throwback Thursday. So let's get old school with it real quick. Yeah. As always, if you have any suggestions of what old school joint I should play, hit me up at cool_radio or DM_cool. And most definitely, I will play those joints. This one, since we're talking about cultural appropriation and what have you, this one comes by way of a 1990s R&B singer who just so happens to be white, who just so happens to be very talented as well too. He goes by the name of John B. He dropped this joint in 2001, I believe. This one had all the clubs popping during that time when real R&B was taking over the clubs, which I sorely miss because I'm not really into the whole ratchet and soul thing, singing to strippers and confessing their love to them and everything, flying them out from Miami to Toronto and all that bull. Yeah, I ain't about that life. And I don't think this gentleman was either. This song, once again, from John B, is called Don't Talk. And when we come back, we will have the Wankster of the Week. So keep it locked. This is Cool Radio, and we'll be right back after these messages. Yeah.
What's going on, people? It's your boy Femi Lassie and Nanny.
It's your man Bo Pinto at Bo Pinto.
J Hood from the Toronto Argos. You are now tuned in. Cool.
Radio 91.9 FM.
It was an amazing interview.
I had an amazing experience.
Had an amazing time. The best radio show experiences I've had ever.
Stay tuned for the hottest in news, hip-hop, entertainment, and everything.
Every Thursday at 8 p.m.
Big shout out to DM Cool. Good vibes.
Love you, man. You're famous. I love it.
Yes, yo. Welcome back to the show. You're now tuned into CFRE Radio 91.9 FM and also the World Wide Web. at CFREradio.com. It is your man DM Cool. You're now tuned into Cool Radio. Welcome back to the show, people. Once again, that was the Throwback Thursday track of the day, John B. Don't Talk. And I have a request from my fellow CFRE on-air talent who goes by the name of Elise, who is a co-host of The Swig. She requests for next week that we play Lullaby. I'm not sure who that's from, but I will do my research on that nonetheless. But thank you for the request nonetheless. But yeah, we have to switch gears, ladies and gentlemen. We're going from old school classics to wanksters, and this is Wankster of the Week, so let's drop that real quick. Now, Wankster of the Week. This one was loaded with full of wankster potentials, all right? There are a lot of them. Adrian Broner was that close to making that list this week. But it was so tight this week that we had to give it to two people. We had to give it to two offenders who did a lot of ratchetness and not enough righteousness this week. First person that we're giving the Wankster of the Week award to is none other than former Glee star and former girlfriend of Big Sean, Naya Rivera. Okay, now we are giving her the co-Wankster of the Week, as I like to call it, because of an appearance that she made on The View, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, she had some comments in regards to taking showers on a regular basis. So I'm not even going to paint the picture for you. I have the clip in the deck, and we're going to play it right now. So I will let you guys figure it out for yourself. So here's the clip right here.
I think that white people shower a lot more than ethnic. Really? I think like showering more than once a day or every day is such a white people thing. My mom is half black, half Puerto Rican. She showers every day, so I can say this. But I can say I'm now married to a white man, and he showers a lot. Like, a lot. Like 2-3 times a day. I'm like, what are you doing? You're washing the goop off. You know that, okay, so the study says, a dermatologist says that you are only supposed to shower once or twice every 3 days. So wow. I'm right on the mark.
Listen, I don't know what bullshit dermatologist you're going to, but he's telling you the wrong things. So you saying you're on the mark? No, you're not on the mark, sweetheart. You're on the skid mark of it all. You need to... I'm sorry. I mean, I didn't know that bathing was only relegated to certain ethnic groups, if not any. I mean, to say that you only wash yourself once every 3 days, that is disgusting. There is no wonder why Big Sean left your dirty ass. Maybe that was the inspiration behind I Don't F With You. Maybe that was the inspiration behind that song, because obviously no one wants to have to climb up in some dirty chocha every single day for the rest of their life. And that's why he said, boy, bye. So that's just disgusting on her part. I don't know who told you that. I'm thinking it was probably Dr. Nick Riviera, who probably doesn't have a license at all in the first place. But you're supposed to shower at the very least, once a day. Twice a day is probably recommended, but at least once a day. At the very least. And if you're going to do it once a day, then it better be at the start of your day. Otherwise, you are just a dirty bird. Just dirty. I can only imagine what your white clothes look like. They probably look like beige interior in a kitchen. It's probably just filled with all sorts of dirt. Her panties probably look like a monster truck rally when she's all said and done with it. It's probably that disgusting. So, Naya Rivera, you definitely get the wankster for that. And I am surprised that the ladies of The View even let you on their couch, which is probably made out of leather. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next wankster of the week, which happens to be none other than up-and-coming rapper Kevin Gates. All right? So Kevin Gates was caught under fire this week because he admitted to all of his fans online that he is dating and having sex with his cousin. Yes, that's right, people. He is having sex with his cousin. You don't believe me? I have the audio for that as well, too. Let's take a listen, shall we?
Nigga be talking about, yeah, y'all look like brother and sister. Shit, no. I'm fucking the shit out of her. Come to find out she my cousin, you heard me? But I ain't about to stop fucking with her. Shit, the pussy good and we click. Shit, I ain't grow up with you knowing you're my people. Man, y'all gonna stay out my motherfucking business. So you mean to tell me if you been fucking with somebody for 3 months, you heard me, everything beautiful, and your grandmother come tell you one day, you know that's your cousin. Y'all done got the hard part out the way. Why fuck up a good thing? I don't get...
There's a lot of things you don't get in this world, Kevin Gates, and that's not smashing your cousin. You can't do that. Now, he did mention that he didn't know that was his cousin. And fine, if you didn't know, then you know what? the benefit of the doubt will go to you. But now that you do know, you got to cut that crap out, bro. You can't be smashing your cousin like a country bumpkin. Mind you, you are from the country, but don't strengthen that stereotype. I mean, I don't care if it's my first cousin, if it's my second, third, 25th cousin, any woman that has cousin attached to her name, I am not touching sexually. That is disgusting. That is immoral. I mean, who am I to say whether that's immoral or not, but that is disgusting. And if that is in fact his first cousin, he is gross, because that means that is the child of your parent's sibling. That you guys share the same blood. That is gross. It's absolutely disgusting. He needs to cut that crap out. I have nothing further to say to that. You are gross. You are disgusting. So with that being said, do Kevin Gates and do Naya Rivera deserve to get the Wankster of the Week for not bathing and for smashing their cousins? Of course they do. So with that being said, I'm about to drop on them right now, courtesy of 50 Cent. Give it to him, Curtis. Actually, no, that's a Throwback Thursday drop. We want the Wankster of the Week drop. Once again, do they deserve that Wankster? Yes, they do. So let's give it to him right now.
Said you a Wankster and you need to stop fronting.
Stop fronting. Stop smashing your cousins. Start bathing and start doing the right thing. And that's all I got to say about that. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the broadcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in, as you always do on a weekly basis. Greatly appreciated. Like I said at the top of the show, we will be moving all podcasts of the show to SoundCloud in February, and we will be recording all episodes of Cool Radio on video for your visual stimulating senses, as I like to call it. So shout out to you guys. Shout out for you and your patience. I appreciate that. I'm breaking the fourth wall continually over and over again, as I'm always doing. And yeah, we will see you guys next week. So once again, it is your man, DM Cool, and you're about to listen to The Swig right now. So keep it gravy and wavy. I am out of here. Peace.